You're not welcome here anymore, Dad. Just stay out of my life. Those words hit me like a brick the night of my 55th birthday. My son Ryan slammed the door behind him, leaving me standing in the hallway of his fancy condo in downtown Chicago. My gift, a handcrafted watch I had saved months for, still in my hand. I had raised Ryan with nothing but love and sacrifice. Grew up in a modest neighborhood in Naperville, Illinois, worked double shifts at the local diner, and spent weekends coaching his little league team so he could chase dreams I never had. And now, he had the nerve to cut me off like a stranger. Sank into the worn leather couch in the empty apartment. The smell of takeout lingered in the air. Sushi, I guessed, from the delivery boxes scattered around. Expensive. Wasteful. Ryan lived a lifestyle I had helped him afford, and he had the gall to push me away. Before I continue, if you're new here, please like, comment, and subscribe. And tell us where you're watching from. It wasn't always like this. Ryan was a bright kid, a hard worker. I remember saving every penny to send him to the University of Illinois, taking second jobs at Miller's Diner, and delivering pizzas on Friday nights so he could have tuition and books. I believed in him. I trusted him. When he graduated, he landed a job at a financial firm downtown. I watched with pride as he climbed the ladder, eventually buying that condo, leasing a luxury car, and dating a woman who matched his ambition. Lauren, her name was. Perfectly polished, hair always in place, nails done, her laugh sharp and deliberate. I should have seen the signs when Ryan started acting differently. Less phone calls, fewer visits home, more excuses. But I never imagined he would push me out entirely. The night he told me to stay away, the reality sank in. The same hands that I'd used to guide him, feed him, protect him, were now empty. And I realized something chilling. If I didn't act, I'd lose him completely. For the next few days, I watched from the sidelines, letting him flaunt his lifestyle, the expensive dinners, the rooftop parties, the late-night drives in his leased sports car. I kept my head down, letting him believe I was beaten, that his words had broken me. But beneath that quiet exterior, a plan was forming. Ryan had built a life dependent on my support, on the sacrifices I had made over decades. Every dollar he spent, every asset he accumulated, it all came from the foundation I had laid. And now he had insulted me, erased me from his world, and assumed he could get away with it. He hadn't considered one thing. I wasn't powerless. I returned to my small house in Naperville, sat at the kitchen table with a cup of black coffee, and started taking notes. Bank accounts, credit cards, monthly expenses, leasing agreements. Everything Ryan had, everything I had helped him secure. Every subscription, every car payment, every utility account linked to my funding. A slow, steady anger built in me, but it wasn't blind rage. It was focus. Every late-night shift, every unpaid bill I had endured for his sake, it had prepared me for this moment. I would not attack recklessly. I would strike precisely. The city lights flickered outside my window as I plotted, imagining the shock on Ryan's face when he realized the very life he had flaunted was dependent on me. The same hands he had once held in trust were about to teach him a lesson in respect and consequences. And I knew one thing for certain. If he thought he could push me out, he was gravely mistaken. This wasn't just about money. It wasn't just about pride. It was about showing him that respect isn't demanded, it's earned, and it's something I had given him every single day of his life. Now, it was time for him to learn the hard way. The following week, I started putting my plan into motion. I didn't confront Ryan directly. He wasn't worth the satisfaction. Yet. Instead, I moved quietly, like a storm gathering strength. I began by contacting the banks and companies where he had accounts tied to me. Every lease, every credit line, every utility was reviewed. One by one, I discovered the subtle ways he had been relying on my name, my credit, my financial guarantees without acknowledgement. Meanwhile, Lauren started calling. At first, she was sweet, concerned even. "Robert, are you okay?" she asked, over the phone one evening. "Ryan's worried about you. He says you've been distant." I smiled to myself. "I'm fine," I said. "Just taking a step back." She pressed further. "You don't want him to think?" "Thinking doesn't matter," I interrupted calmly. "Actions do." The line went silent. Ryan, unaware of what was quietly unfolding, continued living like he owned the world. Every night, he'd post pictures online of rooftop parties, exotic dinners, and expensive cocktails. I followed him, watched the life he had built on my back, and took notes. Then came the small humiliations that would eventually compound into ruin. At a downtown Chicago cafe, I overheard him laughing with his friends, boasting about a $120,000 lease he had secured for his sports car. "Dad paid for the down payment anyway," he joked, smirking. I sipped my coffee quietly, noting the exact dealership, the account, the terms. I knew the vulnerability in that joke. That lease was tied to my credit guarantee. I just needed to pull the right lever. At the same time, I began quietly sharing details with people he trusted. Lawyers, accountants, and even a few influential neighbors. The story was simple. Ryan had treated his father poorly, insulted him, and assumed he could escape accountability. Small-town networks are tight, and word began to filter back that this young man's success wasn't as independent as he believed. The tipping point came when he tried to cut me out entirely. "I don't need your help, Dad," he said one night, walking into my house unannounced. His voice was sharp, defensive. "I can manage my life on my own. Just stay out of it." I looked at him, calm but cold. "Your life, or the life I built for you?" He scoffed. "You don't understand the world I live in anymore. Times have changed. You just don't get it." "Times change, son," I said slowly, "but respect never does. You've disrespected me every day for months, and now it's time to pay." "Attention!" His eyes narrowed. "What are you talking about?" I leaned back, smiling faintly. "Just adjustments, nothing personal." That night, I called the bank and filed an official notice. Every account that Ryan had relied on me for, leased cars, credit cards, utilities, was put under review. I left nothing to chance. By morning, he began to realize something was wrong. Calls to banks went unanswered. Automated messages informed him of holds and verifications. Bills he thought were automatic were suddenly overdue. Panic set in. He called me, frantic. "Dad, what's going on? Why can't I access anything?" I replied softly, deliberately. "You said I wasn't welcome in your life, Ryan. I'm just giving you space and letting consequences do the talking." Lauren screamed over the phone. "Robert Whitaker, you can't." I hung up by the redrady. End of the week. Ryan was scrambling. Car payments missed, utilities at risk, credit lines frozen. He had built a palace of cards, and I was quietly blowing the wind through it. And all the while, I stayed calm. I wasn't angry. I wasn't vengeful. I was simply reclaiming respect, showing him the real value of the sacrifices I had made for him, and demonstrating that life built on privilege without gratitude collapses faster than you expect. He didn't see it coming, not until it was too late. And that's when I realized the stage was set. The public humiliation, the financial exposure, it would all come together soon, in a way he could never ignore. Because sometimes the quietest storms are the most destructive. By the time I sat in my office that Friday evening, the pieces were all in place. I had every account audited, every subscription tied to my funding frozen, and every bill he thought was automatic now pending verification. The frustration he felt was building exactly as I intended. I poured myself a glass of bourbon, letting the amber liquid warm my hands as I reviewed the documents one last time. The condo lease, the car lease, the premium gym membership, even the private country club dues. Everything dependent on me. Every luxury he flaunted now teetered on the edge of collapse. I wasn't proud of the satisfaction I felt. This wasn't about cruelty. It was about teaching lessons he refused to learn. Respect, gratitude, accountability. And I was finally going to show him, in a way he could never ignore, that the life he enjoyed was built on my sacrifices. The first call came from his financial advisor, a nervous man named Thomas, Mr. Whitaker. We noticed some unusual holds on Ryan's accounts. We're trying to figure out what happened. Of course, I said calmly, letting the calm precision of my tone convey control. Perhaps he needs a reminder that money and privilege are never guaranteed. He's young. He'll learn. Thomas hesitated. I see. But is this intentional? Of course, I replied, my voice soft but firm. Intentional accountability. I think he could use it. I hung up and leaned back, letting the moment sink in. Every domino was in place. All that remained was the public stage, the moment where he would realize the consequences in front of everyone who mattered. I reached out to a few local contacts, the property manager for his condo, the dealership holding the car lease, and even a small-town journalist I knew. I hinted, subtly, that Ryan Whitaker's sudden financial and social unraveling was tied to family mismanagement and disrespect. I wasn't slandering him, just letting the facts speak for themselves. By midweek, small tremors began. Calls from neighbors asking if Ryan was okay. Friends noticing missed appointments. Social media posts vanished as he panicked, trying to cover the chaos. Meanwhile, I prepared my own statement. I wrote it down carefully. Brief, calm, and truthful. The words were simple, but they carried weight. Ryan Whitaker has been given every opportunity in life. He was raised with love, supported in every way possible, and guided to success. Yet he chose to dismiss that foundation and disrespect the people who built it. Today, he experiences the consequences of those choices. The words were ready for the right moment, and that moment would come soon. That evening, I visited a familiar place, the small auditorium at Naperville High School, where I had once coached Ryan's baseball team. A charity event was being held, and Ryan and Lauren had RSVP'd. I had volunteered to speak about community development, giving me the perfect stage. As they entered, I noticed Ryan's posture, slightly hunched, eyes darting around, aware that something was off. He had no idea what was coming. I began my talk, speaking about mentorship, support, and the value of family. My voice was calm, measured, resonating through the hall. And yet, I said, pausing to let the words land, we often forget to respect the very people who gave us the opportunities we take for granted. Some of us, even when given everything, make choices that betray that trust. I looked directly at Ryan and Lauren, and the room went silent. Even the event organizer froze mid-handshake. I speak from experience, I continued, holding my gaze on Ryan. I know what it feels like to see your efforts dismissed, your sacrifices ignored, and your guidance spat upon. And I also know that accountability comes, in time, in ways you cannot control. He swallowed hard. I could see the panic building in his eyes. I smiled faintly. I've let it play out quietly. But now, the truth is clear to everyone. The life you flaunt, Ryan, is built on foundations you've refused to honor. And today, the consequences are visible. Lauren gasped, covering her mouth. Ryan's face turned pale. Around the room, whispers grew louder, eyes turning toward them. The stage was set. The reckoning had begun. The room was tense. You could hear a pin drop over the murmurs of the audience. Ryan's confident facade had cracked, replaced with a nervous twitch in his jaw and darting eyes. Lauren, on the other hand, looked like she wanted the floor to swallow her whole. I took a deep breath and let the silence stretch for a heartbeat. Longer. Timing, I reminded myself, was everything. Ryan, I said, my voice calm but cutting through the auditorium, you've lived your life as if consequences were a foreign concept. Let me be clear. The accounts, the leases, the luxuries you flaunt, they've all depended on my credit, my guarantees, my backing. And while you've spent, bragged, and dismissed me, I've watched, quietly, while you built a house of cards on my foundation. The whispers in the audience intensified. I could feel the weight of every eye in the room on him. He squirmed, trying to mask panic with arrogance. Tonight, I continued, pulling out my phone and sliding it onto the podium, everyone here will understand why respect and accountability matter. I tapped a few keys, projecting a spreadsheet onto the large screen behind me. Line by line, account by account, every luxury Ryan had relied on me for appeared. Car leases, condo payments, private memberships, even a vacation rental he had boasted about online. I hadn't exaggerated. Every figure was accurate, every dependency documented. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Lauren's lips parted in shock, her hands trembling. Ryan's face went white. You see, I said, pausing for effect, the life you flaunted wasn't built by your brilliance. It was built on my sacrifices. And now, because of your disrespect, every single thing you thought was untouchable is at risk. A hand went up from the audience, one of the town's longtime neighbors. Mr. Whitaker, are you saying he has been living off your support this whole time? I nodded. Yes, and more importantly, he tried to cut me out, insult me, and pretend. None of it mattered. That's why the consequences are real, and they're visible now. Ryan finally spoke, his voice cracking. Dad, you can't. This isn't fair. I shook my head slowly. Fair? Life isn't fair, son. You've had every advantage. And still, you squandered respect. You treated the people who built your life like they were invisible. And now, everyone here knows the truth. Lauren's face went pale, the color drained. She whispered under her breath, We didn't know. You did, I said firmly. You both did. And now, it's clear to everyone where the blame lies. The auditorium was buzzing with whispers, nods, and disbelieving looks at Ryan and Lauren. Even the charity organizers looked uncomfortable. They had no idea about the backstory, but the proof on the screen and my calm, collected delivery left no room for doubt. I looked around at the faces of the neighbors, friends, and colleagues. Everyone had witnessed the unraveling of a life built on entitlement. Ryan's pride had been stripped away publicly, piece by piece. The final blow came later that evening. The bank had contacted Ryan directly, informing him that the holds on his accounts were permanent due to mismanagement and lack of independent creditworthiness. The car dealership demanded immediate return of the leased vehicle. The condo management notified him that his lease was under review and might be terminated due to unpaid dues. By the time he returned home that night, he was broken. Lauren didn't even speak, standing silently by the door as he sank into the couch, running his hands through his hair. I entered the condo calmly, carrying nothing but a glass of water. "It's done, Ryan. You've learned the hard way." He looked up at me, tears welling. I didn't think... You didn't think respect mattered," I said softly. "Now you know." The silence hung heavy. He had nothing left to argue with, no leverage, no excuses. The reckoning was complete. I finally allowed myself a small, satisfied smile. The life he had taken for granted, the arrogance he had carried, the insults he had thrown, it had all been undone. And I had done it with calm precision. Not anger, not revenge, just justice. The weeks that followed were quiet, almost eerily so. Ryan and Lauren had disappeared from public events, their social media accounts deleted, their presence in Chicago life all but erased. The city buzzed with gossip, but in the small circles I frequented, everyone knew the truth. Ryan had lost everything, not because of me, but because he had chosen entitlement over gratitude. I returned to my house in Naperville and walked the familiar halls, each room holding decades of memories, of raising Ryan, of sacrifices made, of hard lessons learned. I brewed a pot of coffee and sat by the window, watching the early morning light spill across the backyard. Emily, my niece, had moved back temporarily to help with some projects. She brought life to the house again, reminding me that not all, the young ones, would betray me. I could see the same determination I had once seen in Ryan, but this time it was tempered with respect and humility. One morning, a letter arrived from the bank. Ryan had attempted to regain access to his accounts, hoping to reverse the freezes. The bank responded succinctly. All accounts remained frozen, leases were nullified, and outstanding debts were his responsibility alone. The finality was poetic in its precision. Later that week, I ran into neighbors at the diner. They greeted me warmly, shaking my hand, patting me on the back. "You handled that perfectly, Robert," Mrs. Kinney said. "I can't believe they tried to pull that stunt. You taught them a lesson they'll never forget." I smiled quietly, savoring the moment, but feeling no arrogance, only peace. Ryan finally called one evening. His voice was thin, almost pleading. "Dad, I know I was wrong. I didn't respect what you did for me. I need help." I listened, letting the silence stretch. Then I replied, calmly and firmly, "Ryan, the time for help has passed. You have to learn to stand on your own. Respect isn't something I can give you anymore. It's something you earn, and for the choices you made, you'll now face the consequences." He stayed quiet, the weight of realization sinking in. I could hear the tremor in his voice as he whispered, "I understand." That was all I needed. As autumn arrived, I walked through the backyard, Emily at my side. The fields were turning gold, the air crisp and clean. I inhaled deeply, feeling the peace that comes from knowing justice had been served, not through malice, but through measured truth. I thought of Sarah, my late wife, and whispered, "We did right, my love. We did right by the farm, by our family, and by ourselves. The town may have known of the downfall, but the satisfaction was personal. I hadn't sought humiliation. I had sought respect and accountability. Ryan and Lauren lost their fortune, their influence, and their pride. But I gained something far more valuable: dignity, peace, and the knowledge that I had acted with integrity. That evening, as the sun set, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples, I stood on the porch, a cup of coffee warming my hands. The world was quiet, calm, and just. Sometimes justice doesn't roar. Sometimes it comes quietly, like a river reclaiming its course. And in that quiet, I found closure. They had tried to erase me, to dismiss my life's work, to insult the man who gave them everything. But in the end, their greed, arrogance, and disrespect had undone them, and I, finally, was free. Tell us your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories.